Hi, everyone. This is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Alex Boyce, the co-founder of Fuzey, which builds customer engagement software that helps local businesses strengthen their connection with the communities they serve. Fuzey has raised $4.5 million backed by VC firms like Flash Ventures, Global Founders Capital, Ascension. And prior to Fuzey, Alex used to work in investment banking with Mahendra Susten, Greentech Capital, and Morgan Stanley and others. And Alex has done his bachelor's from Columbia and MBA from Chicago Booth. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Nice to be on.
Awesome. So, Alex, you've had a very interesting journey. You born in US, and then you worked in India and UK as well. And how did your journey start in this crazy world of startups, and what got you interested into startups?
Yeah, for sure. So I think if we go all the way back, fundamentally, I think what drives me to startups is kind of what drives me, in terms of curiosity in life. I'm kind of drawn to ambiguity and change. And fundamentally, I think that startups deliver on that every single day. As kind of a quick background on me, I grew up in the US, did do my university between Columbia, and then I spent a year over in the UK as well, over at Oxford. And I think the big thing that I focused on in education was just, in and around learning how, essentially tech can and will inform life in emerging markets. It was a real big focus of mine. I looked at life predominantly from the clean tech side of things, but fundamentally what kind of drove me and what interested me was how we can help, just provide step change for people, communities, and economies to not make the mistakes of the past, be that in development on the energy side or otherwise. So anyways, in terms of how that brings me to startups, I moved to India for a couple of years, realized how little I knew about the world, was humbled very quickly about, just all of the preconceptions I had on everything. And I said I wanted to kind of, remain in that kind of interesting, zone of focus and uncertainty for the rest of time. I hopped in to a couple of banks, which we can talk about in a little bit, but fundamentally, I kind of use professional services as a conduit to learn how to act as a professional, to have the basic skill set of thinking about business and thinking about how to kind of convey a message, and use that ultimately to get back into starting my own business, which you just kind of alluded to, Fuzey, alongside my co-founder Henrik, to really kind of bring change to other kind of overlooked communities like those of local business owners. So it's been a journey, but one that I've really enjoyed, and really happy to continue to build.
Interesting. And was it a conscious decision for you to move to India, or that's what led you?
Yeah, absolutely. Very conscious decision. I wrote my thesis back in school, and this is now more than a decade ago, which is wild. Anyways, I wrote it on the development of renewable energy policy in Brazil, India, and China. And through that experience, I got to kind of interview policymakers and business leaders on that very topic. And I think it was through those interviews that I really got inspired by what was going on in the world outside of the West. So fundamentally, I started, speaking to these people, really got interested and keen on exploring other things. And I had two opportunities to either, work at a bank in North America or Europe, or consultancy in New York. And I ultimately, jumped over to Mumbai and worked for the Mahendra Group there, which offered me an opportunity to kind of, see this in practice. Mahendra is a $30 billion plus dollar organization. It employs more than 100,000 people. So it's a behemoth in and of itself. But its chairman at the time, Anna Mahendra, had a very entrepreneurial kind of spirit to him, and had a bunch of kind of small incubated businesses. So I had an opportunity to kind of work on some of those businesses for a couple of years, living and working in Mumbai. And that in and of itself was an eye opener, and really, I think, a transformative experience. One that I think, getting back to startups a little bit, was a kind of a powerful enabler, because it really forced me to learn and unlearn, right? Really fundamentally question some of the preconceived notions I had coming into business, into life, into how to manage, how to inspire, how to, do daily day-to-day things, all of it. And I think for anybody that's good, but particularly I think somebody who grows up in the US and, frankly has never had to think about a lot of things other than, kind of the day-to-day. It was a really powerful and inspiring experience.
Very interesting. I think I moved pretty late in my career to a new country. I wish I could have done it as soon as you did. But how did your experience in investment banking help you in your operating experience in startups? And do you think you see a lot of ambitious people working in consulting or investment banking jobs before they get into startups? And do you think that is something you would advise to listeners who just starting to start with a career?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, look, I think any professional services, opportunity is a good one to kind of build basic skills, right? Just as we kind of learn basic arithmetic and reading and writing in school, I think of kind of, a professional services job is doing basically the same for your working life, right? How do you think about, getting into, how do you think about, developing and building a spreadsheet? How do you do the same for a slide? How do you tell a story of kind of, basically conveying a narrative around, an initiative that you're keen on selling, or, indeed a company that you're trying to kind of explain. These are fundamental experiences and skills that I think are generalizable. They've been helpful to me, and also, so my co-founder Henrik is also had experience both at Morgan Stanley and Bain. And that's, between the two of us, we've got great experience in terms of kind of conveying the message that we're trying to sell, and fundamentally thinking about how to position an equity story and talk about a company in the ways and the terms that investors are looking for. So, I mean, I think very broadly, these experiences teach you those kind of base skill sets. And then as you think about, kind of morphing into an entrepreneurial career, that's when this kind of levels up, kind of one step up, where you can really kind of see those outputs and those benefits to what were a couple of years of really late nights and sheer intensity. So I'm very grateful for my time at Morgan Stanley and at Greentech Cap, but equally very, very happy and a bit more inspired doing my current thing now.
So interesting, and that comes to my next question about Fuzey. What you've been an operator in few startups as a consulting gigs. What really led you to start Fuzey, in 2020?
Yeah, so Fuzey is kind of a personal story for me. I think going all the way back, I had met Henrik, when this kind of idea was being kicked around, alongside, basically alongside our thinking about raising pre-seed capital for the business. And essentially, there was a couple different themes that were of interest, but fundamentally, I think what drew me and also us to small and medium-sized businesses are really just their incredible importance to their owners and their communities. On a personal level, my mom has a small business in the US. She has a skincare business that I've essentially grown up around. I mean, it's her kind of pride and joy. It's a big part of her life. And it should be, because she does a great job at really delivering great services to a whole slew of clients in the DC area. That said, what she does really well is taking care of her clients and thinking about how best to serve them and basically deliver world-class skincare to them, right? That doesn't necessarily include the ins and outs of customer communication, nor of how to be really methodical about booking and efficiency, how to think about payments, how to think about getting more people through reviews. So, when we started kicking around some ideas on themes for Fuzey, or what became Fuzey, I think one of the things that really, inspired us was thinking about how best to fundamentally transform the way local businesses can succeed. Ultimately, if you think about the backdrop of the last, couple of years, COVID has been brutal for local business, right?
Yeah.
Well, you've had the Amazons, the Microsofts, the great companies really succeed and really benefit from these tailwinds, right? By virtue of the push to work from home and the drive for e-commerce. A lot of these small businesses have been left behind, right? So I think we're really focused on at Fuzey is helping provide kind of a baseline of support for local business and to do that in the way that they really I think need most help, which is ultimately getting people through the door, serving them well, and then capitalizing on that. So what we did is we ultimately developed a company that provides a platform to manage all customer communication. So through one inbox, consolidate messaging, payments, a variety of messaging channels. So SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and a couple others. In addition, through messaging, we provide kind of three key superpowers. So the first is booking. So your ability to actually, book a particular session at a particular time to make sure that everybody's aware of kind of an incoming booking. As a little context here, my mom for years was reliant on one single, leather-bound notebook. If that notebook was left anywhere or lost, that's the entire CRM, right? Like that's everything, and that's a very, very dangerous, kind of game to play with respect to one's business. So we wanted to kind of move away from that a little bit. On payments, we spoke to a ton of customers as we were getting our business set up, and a recurring theme in that was, there's really long payment times for a lot of say home trades, right? So if you're getting a kitchen redone, oftentimes you won't pay for that kitchen until well after a significant portion of those works have been rendered. That squeezes the local business, right? If we can figure out a way to get people paid faster, that helps the business and their employees. The final thing is reviews. So we really thought deeply about how people get more people in the door. And one of the very, very recurring themes is, actually, I don't think about new business because other people will just tell their friends. That's great. There's nothing like word of mouth. But fundamentally, in this kind of environment, I don't know about you, but any single time I think about buying anything, if it's a sandwich, if it's a piece of electronics or anything like that, I look for the store that I'm going to go to and I look for their reviews, right? Can I trust them? Yeah. Is this something, are these things that we can really rely on? And particularly, I think in service-based businesses, which is our particular focus, that's a really important thing, right? If I'm going to have somebody come into my house and work on a high value thing, or just welcome somebody into kind of the sacred place that is my home, I want to know who they are and whether whether Rohit is comfortable with them and he had a good experience, or if Alex did. So, anyways, long-winded way of kind of explaining how we got to where we are today. But fundamentally, we kind of had this prerogative to create a platform to solve a variety of issues, but fundamentally through the channel of communication. If you can provide individuals a better and easier way to connect with their local business, we fundamentally believe that they can better succeed.
Super interesting. I love the story that you talked about your mother. I think that's a personal pain point that you wanted to solve. And that's why you talk the pain points that you users. They evolved over time to use technology, or are they still focusing on the tried and tested methods?
Yeah, I think, sorry, cut out a little bit, but I think the question was essentially, has our local businesses still kind of very focused on solving these issues through anything new or through tried and tested? I'd say it's a mix. Fundamentally, I think a lot of businesses are still very reliant on the way that they've always done things, and I get that. I mean, old habits die hard, and Lord knows I'm no different than any of our other customers who feel the same way. But that said, I think that some of them have also tried kind of one-off solutions to a couple of these things, right? I think that as we think about Fuzey, a lot of the questions that we often get are, are you trying to be all things to all people? And fundamentally, our view is that we want to be able to deliver a slew of services because we think that that's the best answer for our customers. Because a lot of the kind of feedback and pushback that we've gotten in the past has been around, well, I developed a new payment, I've onboarded a new payments tool and it's complicated, or I've onboarded a new kind of bookings tool, or I'm thinking about reviews, but I'm not really sure how to best to do it, or I have 3 different phones and I can't keep track of them all. The entire perspective and prerogative of Fuzey is really to bring everything in one place to keep that easy and simple, right? Fundamentally, if I'm asking for you to change your behavior, it's easier for me to do that in kind of like asking for one package versus asking you to do 4 or 5 different things on new tools. So that's a big part of the reason why we brought it all together. But to answer your question, I mean, I think it's a little bit of inertia, but also a little bit of new tools as well.
Interesting. And a lot of companies have been born out of COVID, and you accelerated during the through COVID time. But in a remote setup, what questions would you ask your team so that you ensure that they're focused and they're able to deliver onto the project?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, if I'm honest with you, one of the biggest and best kind of upside surprises of the Fuzey journey has just been the incredible dedication and commitment of a team that has been indeed, kind of distributed throughout the world. I think about, our first kind of two engineers that started working with us on the journey, Adrian and Brittany. Adrian, has been based in Panama for the last 2 years. Brittany's based in Granada. And, both of them have just kind of, plugged away for years and years, or what feels like years and years, actually just over a year on creating this platform, from afar. And I think what's been great is, for them, this is equally kind of a journey that they are a part of, because they are core to our business. They are part of the broader, Fuzey community. And fundamentally, I think that they believe in our mission, which is what brings people out of bed every single day. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in London or in Panama, or our one of our first hires in our growth team, Kian, sits in Nairobi, and same story there, right? Fundamentally, he believes in what we're ultimately trying to deliver, which is the reason why he kind of gets up and delivers the great work that he does. So the questions that I ask are basically in and around that. I think high level, if you're able to ensure that the team is aligned around kind of what it is that you're trying to do, I worry less about kind of the actual execution. Of course, at scale, these things differ. But today, I think the purpose at kind of the pre-seed and now the seed stage is really to make sure, do we have a cohesive strategy around, which people are aligned? We like to think we do. And now, most importantly, do people care enough to really give it their 110%? And I think that's the piece that we're particularly proud of so far. That seems to be, paying dividends in terms of our productivity and our ability to succeed.
Interesting. And when you start off the company, it's a smaller team, but how does the decision making evolve when you're trying to scale a business and you already raise funding?
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, I think decision making evolves over time as probably with both the scale of kind of the maturity of the business. So through which I suppose some proxy would be funding, but the other is just kind of size of team. What's extraordinary right now is that our team is small enough that we can kind of get certainly everybody in one room, but have a kind of collaborative Zoom all together. We just had one of our monthly all hands earlier today, and it struck me that the entire team was on and just kind of discussing the kind of latest developments on our side around a couple of great customer wins that we had. And we had the growth team debating with our product and engineering team on a couple of points, and it was just a special moment that reminded me of where we are in the journey, right? Which is small enough that we can kind of have this very dynamic back and forth as a full team, but equally that we are off the ground enough that we have paid customers and a great platform and everything on which to do that. So we're in a fun kind of phase right now. But to answer your question in terms of how that might scale, I think, again, it kind of comes back to mission, right? Like fundamentally, if you've got a team that's aligned on everything in terms of what you're trying to deliver, I think it gets easier with respect to how you can really tell that story, in terms of, day-to-day, delivery. So, on a decision-making basis, we're very, very, very data-driven. It doesn't matter if we're spending £1 or £10 or £100 on an ad. We will look at every single metric in and around engagement, click-throughs, really understanding what's working and when. And so that's kind of a basic hygiene factor. But I think the next piece is just, again, kind of getting back to that kind of mission-driven piece. Having a collaborative approach to decision making, I think, is a very, very big thing up front as well. Ultimately, I speak to customers every single day, as does the entire growth team, as do frankly much of the engineering team as well. When there's kind of troubleshooting. But fundamentally, that means that everybody has their own particular perspectives. Over time, this will change. We'll have more kind of deliberately more structure and kind of a stronger process orientation. But right now, what I want to make sure that we do is live by the data, die by the data, but fundamentally also bring everybody together to get to a better outcome.
Interesting. And when you're scaling a startup, obviously you're going to make a few mistakes in there. But how can leaders create environments of safety for the team so that they could deliver at the best for the company they're working for?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think humility and vulnerability is everything, right? I'm the first one to remind the team every day, and Henrik does the same. We have a particular perspective and a belief and kind of a prerogative of where to go, but by no means are we the final arbiter on whether that's the right way or the wrong way, right? At the end of the day, these things have to be collaborative, and people have to be able to share. Hey, look, Rohit, I'm not sure I really kind of believe in that approach, or Alex, what kind of leads you to believe that? So I think having humility from the top is important, and then we're very, very big believers in kind of constant feedback, but the whole praise in public and constructive feedback in private approach, right? Where I want everybody to be able to kind of go out and express their ideas and constructively kind of debate them between each other. But at no point do I want that to kind of be, develop any sort of elements of toxicity or negativity, right? So I think the key is developing that kind of trust amongst the team, trust in each other, in kind of leadership, but also themselves. And I think that's the best way to kind of create that safety net that allows people to kind of stand up and speak up and say, what about this or what about that? And certainly, I think. We joke as a team a lot. There's no shortage of people raising their hands and questioning the path. So I think we've done a good job in that respect.
Interesting. And how do you look at compensation and equity structure to supercharge your team and make sure that they're really performing well?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of comp, it's a great question, and I think we'll differ, of course, by the stage of your company, the mission and approach, and kind of what you're trying to drive to, and ultimately, of course, like the types of individuals and more importantly, the roles of the individuals that they're going to play in. I think the overarching kind of punchline to our approach here is that everybody should be an owner in Fuzey. Everybody that comes to work with us every single day is an owner, will always be an owner. And that's just kind of a very, very important, maxim that we hold, between Henrik and I about how we want to, kind of run this business. And the reason for that is fundamentally, if you're going to spend your time working with us on these topics, we want you to believe in them and be part of them and participate in the upside of them. And at the same time, I think it really is a very powerful enabler to provide that additional kind of, frankly, monetary incentive for everybody to make this work. So that's a kind of a very, very big, kind of focus. At the pre-seed stage, special, in terms of like, compensation structures or commission structures, those were very, very ad hoc and frankly non-existent. And that's just because it was so early that the prerogative was not necessarily even to be, selling this or that. It was oftentimes it was just, let's just have a conversation and learn. So as a result, it was much, much more kind of equity heavy than anything else. I think as we scale, of course, those commissions will come in, particularly on the growth side. And we'll start kind of creating more structures that kind of resemble, growth stage companies. But again, I think most of our team remains very focused on kind of delivering on that equity side, which keeps everybody aligned, which is great. I think the most important piece is just kind of creating, as you do create kind of targets and commission plans, you just do so that in ways that are fundamentally ambitious, but also accessible and attainable, right? I think the key is that if you come in and you start working for a company and they say, we want you to 10x the growth by next year, and good luck, go for it, and basically provide very little guidance on how to do that. That's not fair, right? It's not going to put you or me or the company first, and that's not going to benefit anybody. So instead, what we want to do and what we've done a lot of is thinking pretty deeply about what are the targets that would really kind of provide a step change for our company, that also would feed back and provide kind of a sufficient incentive for our team. And that's kind of what we'll be rolling out progressively over the coming kind of weeks and months. And also, and look, already we've kind of seen an uptick there. I mean, we started talking about some of these schemes, and very quickly we started seeing a lovely uptick on kind of just the intensity of growth. So I think, again, in short, if you've got the kind of mutual participation in on the equity side, and then you think deeply about how to create incentives that empower and inspire but not overwhelm, then I think the team is probably well suited to be good to go.
Got it. And when it comes to founders, what advice would you give to them, since you've recently raised seed round from a seed round from great investors? When should they look at raising funding in their journey?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think the answer to that is a personal one, right? Fundamentally, Henrik and I spoke for months with investors on kind of an ad hoc advisory basis when we weren't raising and weren't really intending to. This round came together unexpectedly, where we were approached by a couple of different firms with essentially unsolicited offers to lead our round, which led us to start thinking about okay, maybe this is indeed the time. Over the kind of months that kind of, or the weeks that followed, really, we got to know the ByFounder team super well, and Eric and Sarah and that entire team were super supportive of kind of our journey and what we're doing. They really got to know our so what, which was a big thing for us, right? I think historically a lot of VCs will look at anything local business related and get a little scared because it's not the typical classic enterprise B2B play, and there is a bit more kind of go-to-market complexity. But the fact that that entire firm was really behind what we were building was a real kind of enabler for us to say this feels right. Fundamentally, it feels right. And I think for in terms of looking back and thinking about the Global Founders Capital team, the Ascension team, these are the people that ultimately came to us and really made us feel like they cared about what we were trying to build, not just the implied potential IRR or the money on money or anything like that. What they cared about was what we were building. And I think even looking back on the last couple of weeks, where we've started sending out our first investor updates to our new investors and whatnot with specific asks, like these have been kind of the validation moments where I've really said, and Henrik's really said, we're really happy about this. But I mean, to answer the question on when, I think that when is when we felt ready, because at the end of the day, we had a product that was out in the market, we had customers that were using us, and we knew that we were onto something, right? The pre-seed phase was about investigating, is this a problem really worth solving, and if so, what do we want to do about it? We were able to validate that and kind of build an MVP that created enough value for a slew of great customers that told us we want more of this. That was the time at which we felt comfortable going to speak to investors and get their perspectives on it. And then obviously the rest is history. So I think looking forward now, what we're really focused on is building, kind of a growth model that's fundamentally sustainable. So, can we continue to show and continue to drive down our customer acquisition costs as we kind of expand that lifetime customer value? And as we start developing conviction around that, that's when we'll start having those conversations around that next round, right? So I think grounding it in these kind of like fundamental principled questions is a great way to kind of reduce some of the emotion around the raising process and be able to kind of keep you focused on when to do it. And I think that'll suit everybody kind of for success.
Interesting. And my follow-up question is for investors that you have added. Where do you think there's been a lot of debate in Silicon Valley that a lot of investors don't add value, but I wanted to understand how do you think the investors can provide value outside capital?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can provide value in a huge way. I think about, basically just the support, I guess, well, let's start from the top. I think emotional support is a huge one, right? Where we know that we have people that have backed us, that believe in us, right? I think one of the kind of big definitional moments with our relationship, with ByFounders in our seed round was, the team coming on and really just saying, look, we believe in everything that you're building and are very aligned with the mission, but fundamentally we believe that your team can do it, right? And that includes everybody that we've kind of had along the journey, and for Henrik and I, that was a very meaningful moment, because we kind of said to ourselves, these are people that kind of trust us and believe in kind of who we are and what we're trying to achieve here. That in and of itself is extremely supportive, right? Because I know that we can kind of be very honest, and I think going back to kind of that earlier question about how do you create supportive environments, like that trust and vulnerability was there from day one, and we really appreciated that. I mean, then there's of course the tackling, like the kind of blocking and tackling, right? Let's sit down and so kind of brainstorm, challenge, this challenge or that challenge. We think a lot about how best to sequence our growth, strategy, for instance. And if I think back on Global Founders Capital / Flash, and what they brought to the table as we kind of sat back and said, okay, well, do we want to be more inbound led or outbound led? If so, then how best should we kind of optimize this or sequence that? Those are fantastic moments, right? Like that's really, really helpful in terms of like aligning everybody, learning from people who have actually already done it before. And then the final piece is just connectivity, right? So helping us find and connect with people that have faced similar challenges, because as and as I know, and as I'm sure a lot of the listeners will agree, nobody has the perfect silver bullet for any of this, right? And I think if I look back to myself, during that kind of reflection exercise coming out of college, I kind of always looked up and I said, these guys must know what they're doing, right? And I think the great realization of getting a bit older is like, I feel ever more conviction around kind of directionally where I want to go and what I want to do. But I equally feel the confidence to say, I don't always know exactly how to get there. Yeah. And that's, being able to speak with other people who have traversed the same things. That's, I think, how best you can figure out how to get to that next place. And that's kind of the last kind of, piece of the trifecta with our investors, that they've been really helpful in introducing us to people that have made a really huge difference.
Interesting. And, when it comes to, providing an update, also when you're trying to reach out to investors, what for, found investors, and, how should investors reference check, founders reference check investors?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the materials that kind of help support the raise, I think a lot of that's just in and around really figuring out how to tell the story, right? And of course it depends on where you are in the journey, right? I mean, at the pre-seed and the seed stage, it's really about, this is the story, this is the problem that we're tackling. This is why we think it's a problem worth solving. And this is the opportunity at play. And most importantly, this is the team that wants to solve it. And this is the reason why that they can do it, right? Like that's what it's all about. And that's the narrative that we drove. And I'm very happy that we did, because it would be disingenuous to sit here and say, this is going to be our financial projection in 5 years for what we do with this, with a company that very much is still evolving, right? Like, and a mission that's still evolving. So I think that those materials, hopefully at those early stages, kind of convey that story versus, trying to get too much in the weeds of a back calc, DCF 15 years in the future. In terms of kind of reference checking investors, I mean, I think one of the first things that we did was really thinking about, let's talk to other founders that have taken, money from these particular funds. That was the first question we asked everyone after a term sheet. It was just very important to us to make sure that just as they had done their reference checks on us, that we'll do the same. Because ultimately these are really long-term partners, right? Yeah. I mean, we're going to be, working with, Eric, Sarah, and Sebastian of ByFounders, and Lorenzo of GFC for the foreseeable future. And we're very excited about that. But equally, before we wanted to kind of formalize that and crystallize that going forward, we wanted to make sure that we really understood the people with whom we were working. So I think those reference checks are huge. And look, I mean, of course, you're always going to want to talk to, those who have been in successful companies in the portfolio, but I think more important are finding people who haven't necessarily always had the easiest way, because I think it's those individuals that have seen the true colors of the firms with whom that they've worked, and that's a hugely important kind of focus of ours, because we know that not, again, kind of with perspective, that not every day is going to be a good day, not every quarter is going to be, the breakout success. So during those moments, you want to make sure that you have people on your side and that really care.
Super interesting. Alex, I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
Oof, man, there's so many of them. I think when I keep going back to the hardest moments in this in the journey, I think a lot about hard things about the hard things. It's a classic and for good reason. I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of good ones out there, but I think it's a good reminder.
Yeah, no, I think Hard Things is the most referenced favorite book among all the years.
I'm sorry, I'm not more. I'm sorry, I'm not more original, but I think sometimes when you kind of read a text that just kind of resonates with the ups and downs of this crazy journey, it's hard not to love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a truly great book. We'll put that in. If you could go back anything differently.
Sorry, I think you froze out for a second. What was that?
Sorry. If you could go back in time when you started Fuzey, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
Man, it's a good question. Look, I don't think you can ever get in front of too many customers. So even though we were in front of hundreds of customers, in an ideal world, that would be thousands. We did surveys and everything to kind of widen the net, but fundamentally sitting down with as many people as possible, I think always helps. And then using those opportunities to really test, mock-up features, and the fundamentals that created, our platform before even kind of building. I think we've gotten the kind of fundamentals right with our kind of first build of Fuzey, and I'm very proud of that. But I think we would be, they would be even better if we'd had more and more input along the way. So I think I think that would be kind of a big part of it. I think the last piece is just this maybe wouldn't be just Fuzey, but I think more generally kind of career wise, I think really appreciating that these moments are marathons, not sprints, is important. I wake up every day and I say, okay, here's my laundry list of everything I want to get done. Let's jump in, and I'm very happy about that, because that's a kind of proven effective in terms of my ability to help get this thing off the ground. But at the same time, in those same moments, sometimes it would be good to be able to be a little bit more reflective and say, it's not about this moment, not about this morning, this afternoon, whatever. It's about kind of the cohesive body of work that you're kind of building. And I think sometimes maybe that would kind of lower the temperature when things get a little bit more stressful. So I think that might be the other, on a personal level, what I would have focused on too.
Yeah, I think that's super insightful. And do you have any favorite online tools? Example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom, anything other than Fuzey?
Anything other than Fuzey? Yeah, I mean, I'm a Slack devotee with a pretty strong penchant for Giphy. So embedding GIFs in any message that I can. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a slew of great tools out there. I'm a huge fan of Superhuman as well. I think what they've done with that product is great. I think the onboarding that they provided is actually helped inspire a lot of how we think about developing great kind of activation on day one. So there's a couple of them, but I'd probably put Superhuman first, and then Slack as a very close second.
Interesting. I had Vivek Sudera, who's the founder of who's like a Alex, thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and look forward to reconnecting soon.